Hello, welcome. In this live stream, we are going to be writing a series outline. That's the goal for today, and we're going to be doing it entirely in a chatbot, primarily Perplexity, because if you watched Monday's video, you'll know that that is a chatbot that I appreciate quite a bit, although there may be instances, depending on what models I need or anything, where I might need to go to an API, something like Open Router. But we're going to try and do most of it here inside of Perplexity so you can see just how this works. Now, I have, if you didn't know, if you join either of my two groups that you can find links to down below, you get all of my prompts for free. To be fair, that prompt list has been a little out of date, and so I'm using this session today as well as future ones that I'm going to do to kind of update that prompt list so you can appreciate and look forward to that. Excuse me. And we're doing it all in a chatbot, so you could see how you could go from just the kernel of an idea all the way to a finished story, all just inside chatbots. Now, it's not the most efficient way to do it. It's not how I recommend, but we're going to be writing a short story from beginning to end in live streams like this one. Not all today, obviously, but we're going to be doing that in various live streams like this one until we have a finished, at least a short story, possibly a novella, and then we'll see how that goes. And then the idea is I have this. The idea in my head right now is that I have a series of short stories / novellas that I want to write, and I'm going to write each one differently. Each one. So this first one I'm going to do inside of Perplexity / chatbots in general, and then I'm going to do one in Novel Crafter. I'm going to do one in Sudowrite. I'm going to do one in Plot Drive. And I'm also going to do one via automations. So that's 5 total that we need to do. I already have story ideas for 2 of them, but I need to do more. I need to have 3 more story ideas. These are all kind of standalone, but kind of linked. And the genres are sort of a mashup of cosmic horror, gothic horror, and gaslight fantasy. So that's what we're going to do today. And hello to everybody in the chat. I see you guys. Thank you for being here. So let's get started. Let me just change my view here. All right. So, yes, Andrea. So Andrea just said, hi, just tried the super prompt for a short novel. It's a great starting point. Definitely. And we will be using the super prompt in this process. Or at least a kind of version of it that's adapted to work with chatbots. These days with projects, you can change up the super prompt just a little bit, although you can use it the way we all used to use it. Hey, Guy. How you doing? We've got members of my group here today, members of the Story Hacker Gold community. Which you can find down below if you want the quickest and fastest way to get to 20 books under your belt in as little time as possible. All right, so let's get started. I've created a space here in Perplexity. Spaces work essentially the same as projects in Claude or ChatGPT. And there isn't much here yet. And to be fair, this first beginner process, when I'm just kind of figuring out what a story should be, is a lot more imprecise than later processes. Like when I'm writing a chapter, I have very clear prompts that I run things through and go with that. But at this point, it's a lot more back and forth. We might even pull up the advanced voice mode and go back and forth with that. We're just going to see how it goes. Probably just for the sake of you being able to see things and having a visual, I'm just going to use a dictation app that I recently got. My custom instructions look like this. So it says, you are an expert creative writer and outliner. Your task is to help a human take their ideas and build it into an excellent series outline. It is important as you are brainstorming that the ideas remain consistent with the tropes and conventions of the current genre. The current genres are a mix of gothic horror, cosmic horror, and gaslight fantasy. So if I wanted to brainstorm a series for a different for a different series, I would just change this to the appropriate genre. What we might want to do before we get into anything else is actually come up with like an analysis of the genres. That way we have something to go on. So I'm going to switch this to deep research. And I want to say, give me a thorough analysis of the gothic horror, cosmic horror, and gaslamp fantasy genres. All right. By the way, this tool that I'm using here to transcribe, it's called Aqua Voice. I should probably do a video about it at some point, but it's kind of become a game changer for me for like small dictation tasks, like inputting prompts like this, as well as like responding on social media, responding in my school group. It's really cleaned up and sped up that process. So highly recommend. But anyway, so let's go ahead and run this. What do we want? Let's add social in here, maybe academic. Yeah, let's just do a very thorough deep research and get some info about these genres. Hello, Josie. Hello, Nawaf. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Hello, Elena. Good to see you all here. DS9, how you doing? All right, so it's going on doing its searches. It's going to take a minute here, especially because I asked it to look at academic and social as well. I figure there's got to be some academic articles about genres and things like that, and certainly discussion about genres from readers and the like. So that's why I had to search through those things as well. And this is always a good place to start when you're just getting started, is doing some genre research. What are we looking for? What are the kind of tropes that readers look for? Because ultimately, when it comes right down to it, every book we write should be in service of the reader. You can write one just for yourself. That's fine, but it's not something I would expect to make money. And it's not really something I would do. Like if we think of writing as a sort of noble profession, it's because we're in service of the reader. And so understanding genre is a part of that process. All right, so we got gothic horror. Historical origins. Okay, yep, started with the Castle of Otranto. I actually know that. It's characterized by its emphasis on psychological terror or over gore. Yeah, I like that. Creating atmosphere through suspense and dread rather than explicit violence. The genre's hallmarks include all of these things. Cosmic horror, also known as Lovecraftian horror, emerged in the early 20th century. Excuse me. We've got elements of that. And then gaslamp fantasy draws heavily from gothic horror traditions while incorporating fantastical elements into historical settings. Key characteristics include 19th century British Isles or British colonial settings, gaslamp lit streets and gothic architecture, integration of real historical elements with fantastical creatures, either masqueraded magic hidden from mundane society or fully integrated magical worlds. We got vampires, werewolves, ghosts, and fae, magic systems that feel period appropriate, supernatural elements serving social commentary purposes, investigation of how Victorian social structures would adapt to magical reality. So yeah, it's essentially similar to a urban fantasy, but set in like 19th century Victorian times. All right, so I'm going to copy this and actually add it as part of our custom instructions. So one thing, this is a small little issue, but one thing I don't like about Perplexity's spaces is that, and this is one tiny advantage that Claude Pro has over Perplexity, is that I can't just paste text into the sources. I could come here to custom instructions and put it in there. But I'm gonna create just a notepad. Whoa, I don't need that list of sources. And just paste this in here and then save it. I'll just save it to my downloads folder. Genre analysis. And then I'm going to add it as a file here. There we go. And now it's got that information in its memory. That'll be useful. So questions about, is 4.1 Opus the best one for story writing? So I've recently created an automation and talked about it in the Story Hacker Gold group. And they also got access to it. But I created an automation that writes a whole book from an outline. And as I was testing that on one step of the process, and there's several, okay, on one step of the process, which is writing the first draft, I decided that Opus 4.1 was the best one currently in my tests. So yes, but keep in mind, every task is different. Every prompt responds differently depending on which model you're using. And I could probably use GPT-5 or a Sonnet 4 or something else and get very similar results by changing the prompt or what have you. And also that some of it is just subjective, like it's just your personal taste. But I found Opus 4.1 is a very solid model, especially with the right prompting for creative writing. So what is the AI being used for this demonstration? So I'm in Perplexity, but Perplexity has multiple models in it. In this case, I was using deep research to do the genre research, and that is actually it's actually not a like normally if we're doing a normal question here, you can select different models, but deep research is actually a totally separate model that Perplexity made themselves specifically for deep research. Okay. Ray says, I forgot you do these on Wednesdays. I kind of do them whenever. And actually, because what I'm trying to do here for those who have just come in is I want to write a short story, maybe a novella, entirely using chatbots. And right now we're just starting at the very beginning and outlining a series. And then I'll do the other books in that series in different programs. So I can like give them, give you guys a full overview of those things. You'll notice in my most recent videos, I've been going hard on just reviewing different chatbots. Monday's video was all about which chatbot is my favorite, which, spoiler alert, it's Perplexity. If I could only pay for one subscription, it would be Perplexity. And so that's what I'm using here to write this. Have I tried Moonshot Kimmy K2? Yes, I wasn't too happy with it, at least not for creative writing. Venice AI is good for uncensored stuff. I have a video coming out very soon, actually, about that. So yes. Yeah. Anyway, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I will try to get to them later, but right now I need to focus on this creative endeavor, and so you guys can see like what this is going to actually look like. All right, so we got a Gothic or genre analysis, and put that here so it's got an understanding of different tropes and things. And so now it's time to actually start putting in our information about just what I have in my mind so far about this series. And rather than tell you about it and then put it in the chat, I'm just gonna dictate this into the chat. So let's see. I want to outline a series of 5 novellas. I already have ideas for some of them. They will all be standalone stories that are thematically tied together and in a similar genre. The first that I have already started writing takes place during the Viking Age with Ragnar Lothbrok, and features him discovering a previously unknown piece of land that has a weird cosmic horror type monument in the center. One of his personal mages ends up opening a portal to the underworld, where a lot of cosmic horror entities dwell, and they very nearly risk awakening a even more deadly and sinister cosmic horror entity. Let's see. The story ends with Ragnar and his Vikings going head to head in an epic battle with a bunch of Shoggoths and other cosmic horror entities. And the portal is closed for now. This is also a moment in history where a certain bacteria that has its roots in a cosmic horror type entity gets out and infests various rats and other animals who later infest humans. And this is the source of gothic creatures that we know of, like vampires, werewolves, and zombies. But that is not really relevant to this specific novella. It's just background information for my world building. All right, so that should be good for that one. I also have ideas for a second novella set in this series that will go into detail on Frankenstein's monster, following the end of the book Frankenstein, assuming that Frankenstein's monster is still alive and traveling in the Arctic. I don't know exactly where this novella should go, but I want it to paint Frankenstein's monster in a further sympathetic light and set him up as a potentially important character for a later series. It should also have some kind of cosmic horror connection. All right, and then I've got one more. The third idea that I have takes place in Victorian London with Sherlock Holmes. In the story, he discovers that there was actually a plot behind the sinking of the Titanic. So this is set around that time. And that there is a cosmic horror Cthulhu-like cult that is behind it. In his investigations, he also runs into a Tarzan-like character, further giving more connections with pulp-like stories. We can't call him Tarzan because Tarzan is trademarked, so it will have to be someone else who is essentially just like Tarzan. I need ideas for the other two. They can take place in any time period before, in between, or after the ones I've mentioned already. They should have some kind of cosmic horror connection, potentially some kind of pulp connection, like characters like John Carter, Tarzan, The Shadow, or others. As a note on world building, H.P. Lovecraft Nyarlathotep is a background character orchestrating a lot of the issues that we see in this series and in future series. Perhaps we could have something about him, or hint that he is involved somehow in one or more of these stories. To make sure it did spell Nyarlathotep correctly. That's cool. As a little background on him, he arrived on Earth at about 3500 BC with several of, open quote, the gods, close quote, and served as a consultant for Ra, the Egyptian god, before revealing his true colors. He has been secretly behind the scenes of a lot of bad stuff over Earth's history, and it's not until the Victorian times that he really starts to make his moves. Something like that. All right. Is there any other context I need to give it? No, I just give it a little bit more of some instructions here. Please give me 20 ideas for what I could do in the other two stories. Make sure they are all distinct and unique from each other. Fit the vibe of the other three stories, as well as the genre tropes and the world building that I've mentioned. All right. Gonna quick check the chat. Jude's asking about my workflow. That's a good question. Because there's so many different types of workflows for this, especially depending on what tools you're using. I think these days I use a chatbot like this one to do a lot of my brainstorming, and then I kind of like take those ideas and refine them on my own in a separate document. And then I'm really kind of going big on automations these days. I take my ideas and run them through some automations to get where I want. So, all right. Let's go. Okay. Yeah, let's run this. I have it set to deep research. We'll set it to regular, but I'm going to pick my model. Let's go with Sonnet 4 Thinking. Because that was a lot of context that I just gave it. It's good thing I had that that transcription tool, because that would have taken a lot of time to type out. And this way you got to hear me talk about it. All right. So we're looking for 3 ideas, or 2 ideas, because I need 5 of these total. Roman expedition to Hyperborea, circa 50 AD. A Roman legion following. So is this the lost Roman legion? Of a northern land rich in amber, discover the remnants of an ancient Hyperborean city. They find crystalline structures that sing. Okay, no, this is just making this up. Mayan, Byzantine. I don't necessarily want to go too far away from like Britain. But these are, I guess these are like ancient classical time periods. Medieval Renaissance ideas: Mongol, shamanic revelation, plague doctor's discovery, Aztec codex. So it's giving me a bunch of options. I might need to refine my prompt or just ask it to give me different ideas. Dutch East India trading horror. The Salem witch trials. That one might be worth investigating, having a version of that incorporates all these elements. Okay. 19th century ideas. American Civil War battlefield anomaly. Man, the Civil War is a great. It's just like such a horrifying thing that happened. It's really good for like horror, alternate timeline type stuff. Australian outback, Suez Canal. So it's really going to like different places all over the world. Turn of the century Edwardian ideas, archaeological disaster in Egypt, Amazon rubber boom nightmare, Japanese Meiji period modern. Okay, so I see what it's doing here. And I'm going to refine my prompt a little bit. I'm just going to say, I'd like to stick to ideas that connect directly to either real historical events like the Salem witch trials you mentioned, or real literary figures that have a connection to either the Gothic genre, the Victorian time period, or the pulp genres. Characters that I've already mentioned, like Frankenstein, Ragnar Lothbrok, Sherlock Holmes, Tarzan. All of these are good examples. Please think of some others. Give me 12 more ideas with this in mind. Let that go. All right. The Jack the Ripper investigations. That one was probably, that's actually probably too big for this one. Like you could probably make a whole series about that one. The Great Chicago Fire Cosmic Conspiracy. Ooh, what is this? Miss O'Leary's cow didn't start the fire. It was a failed attempt to contain a cosmic core entity that had been slowly emerging from beneath Lake Michigan. Franklin Expedition. Dr. Jekyll's final experience. Okay, so this having one on Dr. Jekyll might be a good one because Dr. Jekyll is a character in a future series that I'm going to be writing, and this series of novellas is they're all kind of like a prelude series to another series that will go a little bit more in depth on this. So something on Dr. Jekyll would probably be good. And I also like something on the Salem witch trials. Captain Nemo. That could be fun. That could be really fun, actually. I pull in a lot of public domain stuff for my universe because it's just fun that way. But Captain Nemo's another one that I would maybe bring into the other series, do something a little bit more, I don't know. The Time Traveler from Wells. Yeah, that's good. Edgar Allan Poe's final investigation. In his last months, Poe became obsessed with reports of people who had begun seeing geometric patterns in everyday objects. Wallpaper, brick, and rain. Is this real, or is it just making this up for the story? Probably not. Teams up with P.T. Barnum, whose traveling exhibitions have... Okay, this is probably not going to make it into the novella, but this would be an excellent book Poe teaming up with P.T. Barnum, if that works logistically. I don't know if they were contemporaries exactly, or like what age they would have been at what time, but I have to look at that. Dorian Gray's Portrait Revelation. Yeah, so these are all good ideas. I also want to do something with I'm just going to ask it a few ideas just to see if it gives me anything else. I'm also fascinated with the character of Carmilla, the first vampire. That might be a story I want to integrate into my world in some way, if not in these novellas, then in some other fashion. I'd also like to know more about the significance of Edgar Allan Poe and the Raven. If you could give me more information about that, that'd be great. This is how I brainstorm, guys. It's just kind of back and forth, just kind of going where my interest leads me and finding the things that I like. All right, so Carmilla is absolutely crucial to vampire literature and would be a fantastic addition to your Cosmic Horror series. Predates Bram Stoker's Dracula by 25 years. It's a good story, by the way. You guys should read it. Making her arguably the first major literary vampire and certainly the most significant female vampire in Gothic fiction. Okay. Rather than traditional... I like the idea of her having some kind of origin shortly. Like, we could do an origin story for Carmilla. All right, and then the Raven. The Raven represents the unknowable mystery that human beings frantically try to use their reason to understand because the unknowable is scary. That does directly parallel Cosmic Horror central theme. And it's a good theme. The poem shows the final line between rational thought and madness and how strong emotions can push a person into irrationality. Ravens traditionally symbolize ancient wisdom, intelligence, and transformation, and serve as spectral messengers bearing the weight of untold visions and prophetic teachings. They're also symbols for evil, death, and supernatural forces. Okay, in your world, Poe's encounter with the Raven could be a cosmic horror entity attempting to communicate warnings about Nyarlathotep's plans. The bird's cryptic nevermore could be a desperate attempt to convey information about timelines or prevent future catastrophes. All right, so I'm probably not going to use that in these novellas, but I'm definitely going to use this in the series. Okay, choices. Because now I have like 3 different ideas. Maybe could we combine something of Carmilla with the Salem witch trials? You know what? Actually, I may just not do the Salem witch trials. I feel like for a short story or novella, there's not enough time for me to get really deep into that kind of a story, and I feel like that one cannot be told lightly, if that makes sense. It needs to be done with a little bit more gravitas. So here's what I'm thinking. We have one about like an origin story of Carmilla set maybe a little bit after the Viking timeline, and then we do a Frankenstein, and then we do a Dr. Jekyll one. And then we do the Sherlock Holmes one. So I think that's 5. Yeah. All right. So the next step is to start to like put this together into an outline. So I think my favorite ideas are doing something of an origin story for Carmilla, set probably not too long after the Viking story, where she is among the first to be infected with this virus. Nyarlathotep can play a role in maybe experimenting on the virus to cause it to create vampires, and Carmilla is the only one who gets out of it alive at the end. My second favorite idea is something to do with Dr. Jekyll. In my version, Dr. Jekyll does not die at the end, and even becomes something of a good guy later on. So this short story or novella would likely take place shortly after the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde novel and give us more insights into him. With that in mind, help me put together a timeline of these 5 stories, the first 3 that I mentioned and these second 2. All right. Based on your preferences, here's a chronological timeline for your 5 novels that create a compelling narrative arc spanning over a millennium. The Ragnar one would be about then. Yep. So about 845 to 850 AD. Carmilla's origin would be about a century later, it looks like, set roughly 75 to 100 years before Ragnar's portal incident. This story shows how the cosmic horror bacteria had begun mutating and evolving. Frankenstein's monster would be about 1818 to 1820. Yeah. Dr. Jekyll's be about 1887 to 1890. All right. Yep. So this got the timeline correct. So I've actually already started working on this first one with Ragnar, and I'm doing that one in Sudowrite. I'm going to continue those live streams later, and just do that one entirely in Sudowrite. This one, so I suppose the one we'll be doing together here in a chatbot will probably be Carmilla's origin story. So the next step at this point is I want to probably take this and refine it a little bit, get a little bit more info. And we're not going to go all the way to outlining these. We're just creating the series outline, but I want to make sure the series outline fits. So I'm going to go into my Google Drive account off screen here. Just in case I don't want to accidentally show anybody any sensitive information. All right, Pulp Era. Creating a new series. Let's brainstorm. Help me brainstorm a compelling title for this series. Give me 50 options. We're still using Claude 4 Sonnet. Yeah, it's funny in this thinking I can already see what some of what I was doing. All right, temporal or historical themes. Oh, I already had an idea for this. I'd like it to incorporate the word abyss in some way. Can you adapt your ideas to fit that? All right, abyss across the ages. Because the abyss. I wanted to do something to do with that, like infection. Yeah, here we go. Infection, corruption theory themes. The viral abyss, infected by the abyss. The abyss contagion, seeds from the abyss, the corrupted abyss. Bloodlines of the abyss, the spreading abyss. Chronicles of the infected abyss. The abyss within, touched by the abyss. Some of these might also make good regular title. I want every title of the story to include the word abyss in it in some way. So maybe this series title doesn't need to have the word abyss in it. Let's go see what other things we got here. The infected. The viral legacy. No, the spreading darkness. The corrupted bloodline. The ancient contagion. Seeds of cosmic corruption. I'm going to say, give me more along the theme of viral / corruption themes, with and without the word abyss included. Maybe the infected abyss. This is too many words. Mutations from the abyss. Bred in the abyss. I like that one. Bloodborne corruption. Chronicle of the Dark Strain. Choosing names can be difficult. Spawn of the Abyss. How about like the infected abyss? Nah. Well, for now, I'm just going to call it the abyss. We'll create a new document called series outline. Which model am I using? Currently, it's Sonnet 4 Thinking from Claude inside of Perplexity. All right, series outline. Let's wait. Don't need to type. Let's go with Spawn of the Abyss as the series title. I would also like every novella in this series to have the word abyss in its title. You can make up names for these as we go. Please summarize everything we've talked about so far and list the 5 different novellas with a summary of the events that happen in each. Also give a broad overview summary of the series as a whole. Then give a bunch of world building notes below the list of novellas to make sure we've included all of the relevant information. We're not done yet. I'm just trying to like consolidate everything. Yes, Cheshire, the stream will be up on the channel later, so you can watch it anytime. All right, series summary. Spawn of the Abyss is a 5. So, all right, so I'm going to bring in this empty document. I'm going to start copying and pasting some of this. And I'm going to maybe do some editing on it right now. Spawn of the Abyss is a 5-novella cosmic horror series that blends gothic horror, cosmic horror, and gaslight fantasy elements. Set across a millennium of human history, the series reveals how a single catastrophic event in the Viking Age unleashed cosmic horror entities and a supernatural virus that has been secretly shaping human evolution ever since. Each standalone novella follows iconic literary and historical figures as they encounter manifestations of this ancient corruption, gradually revealing the vast conspiracy orchestrated by Nyarlathotep, the crawling chaos who has been manipulating human civilization from the shadows since 3500 BC. I'm going to also say this series acts as a introduction to various characters and situations that will be relevant for a future series set in the same genre. Beginning with the book Heirs of Dracula, which is a direct sequel to Bram Stoker's Dracula. The series explores themes of cosmic insignificance, evolutionary horror, psychological transformation, and the thin boundaries between dimensions, while positioning beloved gothic and pulp heroes as reluctant guardians against incomprehensible cosmic forces. Despite this, there is an element of hope in each of these novellas, showing how insignificant characters or characters that were thought to be evil might harbor some hope or good in them that could one day turn the tide. All right, so that's a good series summary right there. And then we have each of these. I think I had a specific time for this one. Let me, because I've already started writing it. Um, 8:45 AD. Yeah, I got that right. So we're gonna now copy this into here. Now I already have a title for this one. This one is Runes of the Abyss. And I had a title for the Sherlock Holmes one, which was the Cult of the Abyss. We're going to brainstorm those names right now. I've already got titles for the Viking story and the Sherlock Holmes story. The Viking story is The Runes of the Abyss, and the Sherlock Holmes story is The Cult of the Abyss. Please follow this same format of blank of the abyss for the other stories. Brainstorm 10 ideas for each of the 3 remaining stories. Blank. I don't always do titles this early in the process. Sometimes I come up with a title much later, but just running with it. Carmilla's story, the Bloodline, the Kiss of the Abyss. I like the Bloodline of the Abyss. I think we'll keep that one because that relates to kind of what she's about. Frankenstein, the Wanderer of the Abyss. I like that one too. The Frost of the Abyss, the Exile. The Exile of the Abyss might work better from just like fitting on a cover and stuff, because Wanderer is a large word. There's things you have to think of. The Phantom of the Abyss, the Hollow, the Morning of the Abyss. I like that one too. We'll go with Exile, the Exile of the Abyss. You could also just keep brainstorming these, but why? All right. And then the last one is the Dr. Jekyll story. The Duality of the Abyss. That definitely fits with him, but I'm not sure it makes sense. The Secret of the Abyss, the Transformation, the Experiment, the Mask. The Mask of the Abyss might work. And we can always change these. I'm just going with something to go off of. The Mask of the Abyss. All right, so all right, so here we go. 5 novellas. Let me just go through this one. I gave it most of the information about this one. Viking chieftain Ragnar Lothbrok discovers an uncharted landmass containing a mysterious cosmic horror monument at its center with his personal mage. I don't know what he got that name from. Attempts to unlock the monument's secrets. He accidentally, actually, no, it's not accidental. He intentionally opens a portal to the underworld, a dimensional space where cosmic horror entities dwell. The Vikings face an epic battle against shadow goths and otherworldly creatures as they desperately try to close the breath. Shadow goths. That's because that was a show goths. It must have not transcribed that correctly, and I didn't correct it. So now it's thinking that they're called shadow goths. Though they succeed, the damage is done. The cosmic horror bacteria escapes into our reality, beginning to affect rats and other animals. We'll add a bit of information here. Coming off of the dead bodies of these horrific entities and being spread first by rats and bats, then to other animals. This bacteria will eventually evolve into the source of all gothic supernatural creatures, vampires, werewolves, and zombies. The story establishes the foundational catastrophe that sets the entire series in motion and introduces the cosmic threat lurking beyond human understanding. Then we have The Bloodline of the Abyss, Carmilla's origin story. All right, so let me run down to this one here, which I've already put some thought into as well. Make sure that this fits with my vision of this story. The culminating novella reveals that the sinking of the Titanic was no accident, but part of an elaborate plot orchestrated by a Cthulhu-like cult working for Nyarlathotep. We can just take this out. Holmes' investigation uncovers evidence of the Millennium spanning conspiracy as, we'll just say, the cults behind-the-scenes manipulation finally move into active large-scale operations. During his investigation, Holmes encounters a Tarzan-like character avoiding trademark issues, suggesting that cosmic horror influence has spread globally and affected human development in various ways. The story serves as both a climax and a setup for future series as Holmes' detective work. And you know, I've already done some brainstorming around this. Let's go back to our outline here. Here's some of the work I've done on the Cult of the Abyss so far. Can you summarize this and rewrite your above summary of this novella? This will just make it easier. Yeah, we can go ahead and stick that in here. The U.S. Senator obtained a rare copy and planned to expose the cult activities. In response, the cult orchestrated the sabotage of the Titanic in 1912. Knowing the senator had booked passage with an Necronomicon, yeah, this is all coming back to me. I generated this forever ago, and then this series has just sort of sat there unwritten for a while. They restricted light bolts, ignored iceberg warnings, and relied on the book's cursed presence to increase the likelihood of disaster. The Titanic sank as planned, killing the senator, but their planted agent also perished while trying to retrieve the book, leaving the Necronomicon lost forever in the Atlantic depths. Main events. When the senator's daughter is kidnapped in London, her desperate mother turns to Sherlock Holmes for help. Holmes' investigation reveals the cult's role in the Titanic disaster and their current belief that sacrificing the senator's daughter in a dark ritual may summon the lost Necronomicon from the ocean depths. Meanwhile, a Tarzan-like adventurer is secretly sheltering a former cult member in London whose leaked information has been disrupting the cult's global operations. Recognizing their mutual enemy, Holmes and the jungle hero form an unlikely alliance. Using insider intelligence from the defector and Holmes' deductive brilliance, they piece together the cult's apocalyptic agenda and locate where the daughter is being held for a ritual sacrifice. The story climaxes in a desperate rescue operation as they battle fanatical cult members wielding otherworldly powers. Yep, so that works for that one. And now this level of detail that we have here is what I want for these other ones. Oh, thank you for the super chat, Dai. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Dai. I think there was another super chat earlier. Yes, thank you, Ray, for the super chat. No questions, but thank you. So, all right. So I had a question. Hi, Jason. Have you tried Claude Opus 4.1? Do you feel the difference of the output quality for creative writing between Sonnet 4 and Opus 4.1? Yeah, I mentioned this at the beginning, before a lot of people were on the call or on the live stream. already, but yes, 4.1 is better than Sonnet 4. At least in my personal experiments. Right now, I have a workflow or an automation that I just created and just released it inside of my group, the Story Hacker Gold community, which takes an outline and writes a whole book with it, and does so in one go, as long as you have all of the necessary pieces to get it started. And in that one, there's multiple steps to it. And not every step uses Claude Opus 4.1. In fact, only one step does. But that's the most important step, which is actually writing the first draft. And I did find that it does a pretty good job, especially when prompted correctly and given lots of context. So yeah. All right. So before I go any further, I think let's go back to Perplexity. And back to the series outliner. And we're going to take what we've got here. Actually, I need to just briefly read through some of these to make sure that they are what I want to. Set roughly. This novella reveals how the escaping has begun mutating. That the Tep, having observed the initial begins deliberately experimenting with a virus to create different types of supernatural beings. Directed evolution experiment. Okay. That's fine, but we need more detail. All right. So I'm going to paste all of this into here and be like, I want to go through the middle 3 novellas of this list and make sure they have more concrete details, and an engaging story. I shouldn't be typing this. I should be using my little transcriber. Let's start with the first one about Carmilla. Can you flesh out the story to be more like, to have more details and involve an interesting twist, but still be a story that could be told in a novella? Give me 5 different options. Let that go. We're going to do this until I'm satisfied with it for all 3 of these novellas. So I feel pretty confident about the story for the first and the last one, but I just need to get something here. A young novice nun. Ooh. This isn't half bad. All right, let's look at the second option. The bastard daughter of Duke Leopold. Interesting. Constantinople and Venice. Don't think I want that as a setting. Prefer like Central Europe. Kind of like elements of this one. Although I like elements of this first one too, with the nun thing. So let's go with this one, but I'm going to just change it. Okay. Setting. Wait, this is wrong font. There we go. There we go. Austrian Mountains, 1932. Carmilla is a young novice nun whose convent has been secretly harboring refugees from the Plague Lands region affected by the cosmic bacteria. The Mother Superior, Sister Agatha, has been conducting clandestine experiments trying to cure the infected using prayer, herbs, and ancient Roman medical texts. I don't know about this. You can bring in the Necronomicon here, but not really know that that's what it is. And a mysterious ancient text that she never lets out of her sight. Unknown to the nuns, Nyarlathotep has been masquerading as a traveling bishop, Father Morpheus, who visits monthly to bless their holy work. That's fine. Carmilla discovers that Sister Agatha isn't trying to cure the infected. She's been documenting the mutations and feeding information to Father Morpheus. That's all right. The convent is actually a controlled laboratory. When Carmilla confronts Agatha, she learns that Agatha's own sister was one of Ragnar's crew. That doesn't fit the timeline. Let's remove that for now. When confronted, Sister Agatha reveals that Nyarlathotep, aka Father Morpheus, is close to a cure. Something Sister Agatha needs because her sister was infected early on and has been kept alive through Sister Agatha's experiments. What Sister Agatha doesn't know is that Nyarlathotep isn't developing a cure, but a quote-unquote perfected formula that will eventually result in vampires. Though nobody knows this yet. Carmilla volunteers to undergo I don't like this a little bit. During the ritual, her pure faith creates an unexpected reaction. She retains her humanity and compassion even as a vampire, becoming something Nyarlathotep didn't intend to create. I mean, I like the idea of her being maybe more independent than Nyarlathotep intended. But this whole thing about her pure faith and all of that, I'm not going to go with that. She reacts in horror when she realizes that she is not becoming... Let's just say, at some point, Carmilla becomes infected. All right. To save the other infected refugees. She reacts in horror when she realizes that the cure isn't a cure, but a perfected strain of the virus to enhance her abilities. She becomes the first vampire. However, Nyarlathotep, who has revealed himself to Carmilla by this point, encounters a problem. Carmilla has retained too much of her own free will and does not bend to Nyarlathotep's demands. The novella ends with her leaving the convent on her own. And driving Nyarlathotep away, warning Sister Agatha never to work with him again. This is a bittersweet ending because it also means that most of the infected end up dying. There we go. I think it's good. And that's a pretty good amount of detail too. All right, so that's what we've got now. I'm going to take this and say, here's what, it's like, I took your ideas and modified them. Here is what I now have for Carmilla's story. Let's move on to the Frankenstein's monster story. I want it to have a similar amount of detail as what I have here for Carmilla. Please give me 5 options. Okay. Ooh, I like this. The Frozen Expedition. Following Victor's death, the monster discovers the frozen remains of what appeared to be an ancient expedition preserved in the ice. Among the artifacts, he finds runic inscriptions and the perfectly preserved corpse of a Viking warrior showing signs of the cosmic bacteria infection. The monster's unique perspective as an artificially created being allows him to recognize that this ancient infection is fundamentally different from his own artificial nature, yet somehow connected to the supernatural phenomenon he witnessed in the civilized world. The monster realizes that the Viking expedition isn't just any ancient voyage, it's the remnants of Ragnar's crew who tried to escape the cosmic horror outbreak. Hidden among their supplies, he discovers the personal journal of one of Ragnar's surviving warriors, detailing their desperate flight north. Okay. This one's cool, but it's still kind of like nothing is actually happening. Hmm. Could you combine elements? No. I'd like option 1, but not much actually happens. And the story is a little bit more cerebral and philosophical. I'd like to inject a little bit of action into the story. And by the end, I want to establish Frankenstein's monster as a gentle giant type creature. Maybe he can save a young person from freezing. Let's try that. All right, this is a lot of info. That's great. Can you summarize that in only 2 to 3 paragraphs? Because we're just doing the series outline right now. We're not actually expanding these into full outlines yet. Not yet. Okay, I like this. I'm gonna stick this in here, but I'm gonna make a few changes to this. Following Victor's death, the monster discovers a young Inuit girl named Siku. These are all things I'll check later, the names and stuff like that. I don't want to just take the AI at its word that this is a good name to use. Looks fine, but I want to make sure everything kind of fits. Separated from her hunting party during a blizzard, taking shelter in what appears to be an ice cave, the monster tends to her hyperthermia while gradually earning her trust despite her initial terror. We'll say... Note that Frankenstein's monster isn't warm-blooded, so he has to get creative on ways to keep her warm. Starting with things like lighting a fire, getting inside shelter, etc. They soon realize that the shelter is actually the preserved hull of an ancient Viking. We'll just say they soon realize that part of their shelter is actually the preserved hull of an ancient Viking longship buried in ice for centuries, containing the frozen remains of Ragnar's infected crew. Of some of Ragnar's infected crew, but not Ragnar's himself. And the journal of one Eric the Far-Traveled, which reveals the Vikings' desperate attempts to contain the cosmic horror outbreak by burying infected artifacts at the edge of the world. I don't know about that. Which reveals how some of the Vikings had become infected and were sent to the edge of the world by Ragnar because of the strange effects, which make them into zombie-like creatures. Their explanation awakens dormant cosmic bacteria that reacts to the monster's artificial life force, causing the ice structure, I don't know exactly how that works, but I'll leave it for now, causing the ice structure to collapse while partially reanimating the infected Viking corpses. In a harrowing escape sequence, the monster must choose between saving Eric's invaluable journal, containing crucial cosmic horror intelligence, that he could use to gain favor with the authorities, perhaps, or at least that's what he thinks. Or ensuring Siku's safety. He chooses a child, carrying her safely through crumbling ice and reanimated threats. Through his gentle care and self-sacrifice, we'll say, eventually bringing her back to her hunting party. Giving him compassion. All right, that's good. Got something good there, good enough to be getting on with. And then last but not least, we have the Dr. Jekyll story. So we're going to say, oh, well, first I want to feed this story back. Here is my edited version of this story, colon. Now I want to give the same treatment to the Dr. Jekyll story. Give me 5 options that could work for the story. Make sure it takes place shortly after the end of the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde novel. And gives us insight into how Dr. Jekyll gets a hold of Mr. Hyde or deals with him or creates an agreement with him in a way that will turn Dr. Jekyll / Mr. Hyde into a potentially helpful character later on. Dangerous, but still helpful. Okay. Story. Jekyll didn't die. He faked his death to escape the authorities and has been living in hiding. Working obsessively to understand his transformation. Yep. Ooh, a kidnapping story. I like that. During the assault, Jekyll is forced to embrace Hyde's ability to fight them off, leading to a brutal battle where Hyde's savage nature proves essential for survival. The twist, Jekyll realizes that his serum accidentally created a stable connection to the same cosmic horror realm that spawned vampires and other supernatural creatures. Ooh. The cultists weren't trying to capture him, they were trying to study him because he represents a controlled infection that might be the key to creating an army of transformed humans under Nyarlathotep's command. Jekyll makes a pragmatic pact with Hyde. Jekyll will use their shared knowledge to hunt cosmic horror threats, while Hyde gets controlled outlets for his violent nature against genuinely evil targets. This creates a dangerous but functional partnership where Jekyll becomes a supernatural investigator and Hyde serves as his weapon against cosmic horrors. I like that. I don't even feel like I need to move on to the next bit. To see what the other ones have to say. Yeah, we're just going to go with this first one. And it's almost, I'd say this is like 95% of the way there. So I'm going to copy paste this. Into here. And just clean it up a little bit, get it more to how I like it. The Mask of the Abyss. Jekyll didn't die. He faked his death to escape the authorities and has been living in hiding, working obsessively to understand his transformation. He's discovered that his original serum didn't just release hidden human nature, but actually tapped into the same dimensional energies that created supernatural beings. Through careful experimentation, he's learned to maintain a delicate balance, transforming into Hyde only when necessary and for limited periods. I think that's all good. His hidden laboratory is discovered by a cult of Nyarlathotep worshippers who recognize the cosmic signatures of his experiments. They attempt to kidnap him to use his knowledge for their rituals. Yeah, you know what? I have almost nothing to add to this one, which is rare. Very rare. So I'm going to leave that one. And the last one's good. I do need to just for the sake of having more information here for the first one, I'm gonna see if I'm gonna have more information here. Outline. Yeah, so I already have a very detailed, fleshed out outline for this first one. Let's see. Can I export? No, they just came out with an export function in Pseudowrite. But no, I don't see it. Maybe it's in beta. I'm going to give you a detailed summary of the first novella below. Please summarize it in the format used for the other stories above. I'm just going to say chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5, chapter 6, chapter 7, chapter 8, chapter 9, and chapter 10. All right, still not done yet. We're close, but there's 1 or 2 steps that I want to go through before we get there. Okay. This is set in 1845. Okay, we've got a full, hold on. We've got a full story here. Or full series outline. This is good. This is good. How many words did we do here? Word count. About 1,600 square or 1,600 words, 1,673. It's not too bad. And this is a pretty solid start, I think. So next time we'll get into actually fleshing out one of these to a more fleshed out outline using a chatbot. But there's one last step that I want to do today. So let's go back to the series outliner. I'm going to say, given the above series outline, I want you to set up a critique of the stories in each novella with specific details on how to make it better. Do not actually make any changes in the outline, just give me your critique. Focus on principles of good storytelling, developmental editing, etc. And be sure to let me know where things are going well as well, so that I won't change anything that is good. Could probably refine that prompt a little bit, but then I just paste in everything we just finalized in that series outline. And I could do a prompt that would take its critique and implement it. Strong genre blending, compelling central mystery. Too much exposition about the rooms. Yeah, no, that doesn't matter. No. Okay, this is not necessarily that useful to me, but I'm curious to see what the AI would do if I said, Now rewrite the series outline to include this feedback. Don't change anything about the original series outline unless the critique above says to. I'm just curious to see if it actually gets any better. I'm not going to change the first one because that one is already in progress. But let's look at some of the ones that we just created, like Carmilla. Okay, this hasn't changed much. Oh, this one's actually maybe a little bit better. I actually think this is slightly better. I'm going to copy this and stick it in. All right, Mask of the Abyss. No, I don't think that's better. Yeah, no, that's fine. So we don't really need much of a critique at this point because we'll get deeper into these stories as we go and outline each one. But for now, I actually think we've got a pretty solid series outline here. So I'm going to go ahead and end it there. This live stream has already gone on way more than I anticipated. I'm sorry I'm not going to be able to answer most of your questions. I don't think there are any new super chats, so I appreciate that. And again, just to clarify what we did today, we were working in Perplexity. Perplexity does have multiple models within it, which is why it's one of the reasons why it's my preferred chatbot subscription. I did see there was one question in here that I briefly saw. Is the pro plan for Perplexity solid enough to get through a long/serious session of research and development of story without limitations or throttling? In my experiences, yes. We just saw, like, I've just been using it quite a bit, and I was using a thinking model, which is takes more processing, and haven't been throttled. And to this day, I have not been throttled once from Perplexity. And I use it quite heavily. So yes, I think it's It's certainly like we would have been throttled by now if I'd been using Claude Pro, the $20 plan on Claude. I can almost guarantee it. But didn't see that here in Perplexity, even though I was using a Claude model for this whole thing. All right. Cool. Okay. That'll about do it for this live stream. I will be back tomorrow, and we'll start probably on the Camilla one, and actually starting to get into the outline and prepping all of the documents we need for outline, characters, and world building. Those are going to be the most important documents. And so yeah, we'll do that tomorrow, I think, unless something changes in my life. And I plan on going live every day until this story is done. So look forward to that. You'll see me every day. It should be between, like, the live streams will probably start between like 10 and 11 a.m. So look forward to that. All right, we're going to stop the stream. Thank you all for being here, and I will see you tomorrow.